cloud. Okay, now I've clicked record in the cloud. And I know this can be done. So I think the order we just redid it is going to be fine because you're still recording locally, both of you, and I'm recording in the cloud, and that's really what I wanted. Okay. Well, people are jumping on here. Hello, everybody. Everybody should mute until it's time to talk so we don't hear too much background noise. And because Beth has to keep attendance, it's going to be important that everybody have their name on the screen, or if they don't want to have their name, they don't get recorded as being in the meeting. So far, is everybody hearing me all right? Because I'm three.
I hear you.
3 time zones away or something like that. It was rough the other day for the hearing because the hearing started at 9 o'clock Eastern time. It's 6 o'clock where I am. I was glad it didn't go all day. That was going to be tough.
Oh, and it could have been all day today too, and tomorrow.
And tomorrow, yeah.
The third day would have been hard to get up for
Looks like a few more people jumping on here, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. It's only 6 o'clock.
So they're going to appeal that case anyway. So
yeah, let's not talk about that right now.
Yeah, going to go round and round.
Jabbering till the meeting starts.
I'm gonna start this meeting, and then I'm going to hang around till the vote on the prior meetings minutes, and then I may jump off, or I may be listening from time to time, or we'll see.
So Roger's in California.
Still a few more people coming on.
I was in another meeting the first few minutes that I was actually logged on. So if anybody was speaking to me, I didn't acknowledge you because I had everything muted and I was juggling.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. I've never attended before, but Jack suggested that this was a good meeting to catch.
It seemed like we're going to get more people this meeting than prior meetings.
We've actually had great attendance at these meetings.
Yeah.
I don't think 25 is unusual at all.
Well, on my Zoom account, I can have 49 people on the screen at once. So if we go to a second screen, then it can still get to them. Yeah, it's only showing. I'm at the 25 version right now. 2 cents. So this is why I'm not there.
Oh, that's the first birthday.
This is, yeah, it's either the day before or day after, something like that. Yeah, it's just a couple days ago. She's 1 on her 50th wedding anniversary, turns out.
Wow.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes. On the anniversary too. That's awesome.
Looks
Yeah,
just
it would
like
have
you,
worked out that
Roger.
way. What's that?
She looks just like you.
Yeah, right. Well, you should see the grandson, the younger one. He's
She's
even
got
more-
better teeth though than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the birthday cake leftovers.
No, there's another one that's the birthday cake, which my daughter made a special birthday cake for, so she could just mush it all by herself. And we had other cake because there wasn't going to be much left of that cake. Anyway, welcome everyone to the May card meeting. I'm going to be on here for a few minutes and get it started, and then I'm going to step back and let Mike moderate the meeting. Beth will be letting people in. Beth and Vince will be recording it. So I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of Scio Residents for Safe Water, and I'm in my 28th year watching over this Gelman site as a citizen volunteer and trying to get the right thing to happen over time. Well, look who's here. Welcome, Debbie Dingle.
Hello.
Thank you. Had to unmute. I just came to listen.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you. I have to still sort of understand what happened in court yesterday.
That's on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll cover that. Mike, you want to go ahead and share the agenda? Debbie, you missed this part, but I'm in California visiting my granddaughter for the first time since COVID. So I'm going to be starting the meeting and letting Mike take over and Vince and Beth handle the rest of the meeting. So welcome, everyone. Beth, you want to go into the minutes and we'll do that vote?
Sure. We are going to approve the April 6th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
I'll second.
And second,
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
And no one opposed?
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
thanks,
Thank
Beth.
you.
Good
You're
job.
welcome.
I did have a couple things that I could have said about the data, but there's nothing that was that urgent that I need to share my screen or anything. I just will say that in March, the company exceeded their bromate levels for a while, so they did some special optimizing of their ozone treatment system. And during that optimization, instead of having dioxane levels at around 5 to 7 parts per billion, they actually at times had the dioxane treated water levels of dioxane down to 0 to 2 parts per billion. 0 to 2 parts per billion. Something they had not done with the ozone treatment maybe once before. There was one non-detect before, but so the question that I would have had we didn't have more news here to talk about today would be, why can't they do that all of the time? And why are they still using ozone when it still creates all this bromate that even though it's below the acceptable levels, why are they creating a new carcinogen when they don't have to? They can go back to their UV oxidation and treat to non-detect like they used to do at Evergreen. Anyway, that's a side note. I'll let you guys get back to the agenda, and I will turn off my video, and I might be listening, I might not. So thanks, everyone.
Everybody be on your best.
Okay, so having approved the minutes, that takes us to item 3. We have 60 minutes for a lot of items here, so keep with it. And who's addressing item A? Will the Attorney General release the consent judgment negotiation data to the public? And when will the confidentiality agreement be terminated, if ever?
I mean, that's usually the old business under that one is usually mine. Can you hear me? I just want to make,
Yes,
I was having some mic problems earlier. Not at this time. I haven't been informed that the Attorney General is in releasing the consent judgment negotiation data. Now, I'm a little unclear what that is. Are you talking about the technical information that has been on investigation information that has been discussed in last couple of months on the agenda, or are you asking, is this a new item, consent judgment negotiation data, like what was discussed during the negotiations?
well, it seems like it's a double question, Dan, but the question that's been coming over the last few months is, when will the technical data, that's the question, I suppose, why it's an old business. When will the technical data that was relied upon in these discussions be released?
I don't have a date. I mean, as I have stated previously, the AG did request, request Gelman release that data. They did not. So it's still under the confidentiality agreement. So, the EGLE, the interveners, and Gelman submitted briefs to the court this week, as you know, as part of the court hearing. In those briefs, the data and information release request was not filed as part of any of those briefs, including the interveners. So in checking with the AG, I don't have a date when that may occur. So we are, it's been the same, and the confidentiality agreement, at least as of today, is still in place.
Has Gelman formally taken a position on whether they will or will not release this information?
Their position is they'll release it if the confidentiality. Just realize too, as I've stated before, that all that information was released to the interveners during the, as part of the negotiation. So your the interveners technical people and the legal teams have that data and information. So, as far as releasing it to the public, again, it's under the confidentiality that everybody signed the agreement. So, it's not that it's, not been seen by, people, in the, on the intervention teams, but it has not been released from the public, and I don't have a date when that may occur. The judge.
And I guess the question is, has Gelman taken a position on whether they will release that generally to the public? So card members do not have that information.
Right, card members do not have. I mean, they've released it to the negotiation team. So my understanding is it's not that, they haven't taken a position that they're not going to release it if the confidentiality agreement is, if the judge identifies that, is no longer needs to be in place or in place, that that data, because we have that data and I mean, it's part of our Gelman file. So once that confidentiality is done, I mean, we're going to be able to put it on the web just like any other investigation data and information.
So that's the position it's been in for several months. And the next item B, status of the trend analysis review. Has there been any change there?
No, there has not been any change there. We were, like I have been stating, we were kind of waiting for the court hearing, to see what's happening with that. I was thinking I would be able to have the, a draft kind of internal review by the end of the first quarter. This hearing, this last month, in generating the briefs and all the information that the judge requested for the hearing, I haven't been able to complete that. So I don't have an update. We were going to see what happens, as we got closer to the May 1st, we were going to see what happens in the court and then move on that if time allows, related to what the judge is asking us to do right now. So.
Do you think, would this be a good time for just like a brief overview of what happened yesterday for people that weren't there? What do you think, Mike, Vince?
I don't really care when we talk about it. It's obviously important question throughout, and
I'll do it now.
We keep referring to it. Okay.
People may want to leave after.
I was going to see if Ralph McKee would update us on, since.
Sure. Can you hear okay?
Yep.
yes.
Yep, thanks for doing it.
I'll try to summarize this. And there are other lawyers who were at that hearing that can correct me if I get something wrong or chime in when I'm finished with what I'm going to say about it. That was one of the most strange court hearings that I have ever been in. I've been in hundreds of court hearings. I've never seen anything like what happened yesterday. I'll start with that. The way it started after the introductions, there was a short opening statement by the Gelman attorneys. They had a squad of 6, plus their expert. The person who gave the opening was a guy named Rayle, I think his name was, who was a hotshot from Washington, D.C. It wasn't Mike Caldwell. And his presentation focused mainly on the same issues that were present in their motion for reconsideration, essentially saying why the judge shouldn't hold the hearing. And he was deferential to the judge, saying he just had to make his record for appeal. And that was over. If I remember, there was a short opening statement by EGLE, which was pretty much very short and didn't say much. And then Nathan Dupes, who was designated by the intervener teams, went into his opening statement, and they had chosen to make a much longer and more in-depth statement. And he was about maybe an hour into that or something like that. And the judge was asking him questions, and he was doing a good job of answering them. I thought that his statement was quite well done as far as it got. And then the judge essentially stopped him and changed the course of the hearing completely, and essentially indicated that he wanted to do something right away and order something which was potentially the equivalent of the 4th consent judgment. And this caused a lot of consternation amongst pretty much everybody on screen. And the intervener lawyers were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And then there was some colloquy amongst the lawyers, which amounted to, maybe we should take a break and talk to our clients. The judge ordered a break at, I think, around 11 o'clock. At 11:30, the judge restarts the hearing. I missed the first couple of minutes of this, but I guess my understanding was that the judge essentially indicated that he was going to order that. And then Mr. Postema for the interveners said, well, I thought we were going to be able to consult with our clients. And the judge said, no, I'm just going to order this. And then Mr. Stapleton talked some, and then the hearing sort of went into I don't know what I'd call it, a free-for-all sort of, where the judge was he was calling on people. And he called on, I think, first Kathy Knoll, and Kathy courageously said, we have some concerns, and started to outline them in a polite but meaningful way. And then the judge called on Jack Eaton, and he went into the concerns a little bit in more depth. And then I believe several other people spoke, Sue Shink, if I recall right, and don't be mad at me if I don't remember everybody, because there were quite a few. Beth Collins spoke, Roger spoke at some length, telling the judge a lot of information about the whole history and background. And each of these conversations was included what I would call chit chat, for lack of a better term, just sort of normal social conversation if it was in the hall or in chambers or something, which you very, very rarely see on the record in a courtroom, particularly in a case like this. I've never seen this before in my whole legal career. And then I raised my hand at one point. The others were called on mostly. I raised my hand and went through the history of the settlement from a pretty skeptical point of view, and pointed out the problems with what I viewed as the poison pills, which I think all of us would recognize some of what those are, the pitfalls in the deal, that all the pieces that we didn't like, and said, Judge, it might be appropriate to take the good pieces of this, but entering the whole thing is essentially anathema to the interveners and totally not what we want to do. And there were several more discussions like that, or conversations between the judge and various people after mine. And then he seemed to be saying several times that he was going to enter essentially the guts or maybe the exact consent judgment. Then at the end, near the end, Roger spoke again, and this time really emphasized the poison pill aspect of it, and that we really ought to take the parts that everybody agreed on. And then the judge said, that's exactly what we're going to do. Those two pieces are in the MLive article, and presumably they'll be in the transcript. So with that, there was some discussion amongst the lawyers and the judge about preparing a form of order, and which Bill Stapleton was put in charge of, and submitting that to the court. And then the hearing ended. If Kathy and Jack or anybody else wants to embellish what I said, I'd be happy, because I'm sure there are pieces. I wasn't taking notes when it was going on. I had no idea that it was going to go that way.
He wants it to be like updated every quarter, like to meet every quarter starting September 1st, and what's going good, what's going bad, maybe what do we need to do to stop this discharge into the Sister Lake if we get there, or whatever. But he seemed to think that nothing happens very fast in these issues. So, but Kathy Griswold and then Jackie Courteau.
Okay, and Jack Eaton may want to provide some perspective also. One thing that concerned me is that Brian Nagel stated maybe EPA can be undone. And I thought that was totally inappropriate and didn't even fit with the conversation.
Yeah, I missed that. I didn't hear that when he did it.
Oh, okay.
Beth made that comment as well.
Yeah, I immediately
today.
wrote it down.
Yeah, that's not good.
And then at first I wondered what the judge was doing, but after reflecting, I think that the judge just wanted to hear what the public said, to give us a voice, and wanted to have the lawyers sit there for a while. I mean, that's all I can think of, because we did speak for quite a while. I found it very helpful, and I felt like we were being empowered. The community was being empowered more than we have in much of the process. There was also some question about whether it was just the CJ, if it was a supplemental agreement, if it was the order of dismissal. And it was determined that it was just the CJ. And I felt that the judge wanted to move forward, wanted to be perceived as addressing the pollution, and was not as concerned with the specifics and all of the details, both the scientific details as well as the political details. So at the end of the day, I was very pleased with what happened. When I spoke the final time, I did caution the judge that he needed to manage the message that the public had not accepted the fourth CJ. And so if his order simply said he was ordering that we start implementing the fourth CJ, that was going to be problematic. And he talked about that a little bit. And I think we do have some flexibility in terms of how we implement the fourth CJ, and maybe we do it over a period of time. So if our order includes a schedule, we can start with the items that there's general agreement on by both parties, and then put the contentious items further out in the implementation plan. So
Kathy
those,
Knoll? Oh, I'm sorry.
pardon me?
Oh, I was just saying thank you. Kathy Knoll has her hand raised.
Yeah, let me fill in a few blanks here. As Kathy just said, this does not include the settlement agreement or the stipulated order. The interveners are to remain as interveners. This will not impact anything with EPA. That was stated by the judge very clearly.
Yeah, he did say that.
Quarterly conferences will start on September 1st, and the work as identified in the draft fourth CJ is to begin immediately. The judge did not state the basis upon which he was making this decision. So it was kind of a free-flowing decision. No expert testimony occurred. As you've heard, we were just hearing the opening statements. We had not gotten beyond that. It was stated several times that there will most likely be an appeal to the Court of Appeals. And there was, many people there heard conflicting statements from the judge as to what the content would be. One time he did say he was implementing all of the fourth amended CJ. One time he said it was only the elements of the fourth CJ that the parties were in agreement on.
It was, I've talked to a number of people on it, and it was represented to me, at least by some of those, that they understood that the judge had referred the draft, or that Stapleton was to share the draft with Roger for comments. Was that included?
I did not recall hearing that.
I don't either. We'd have to see a transcript, and I don't know what the status of getting a transcript is. This is one of those.
Transcript has been ordered.
Do you have?
Yeah, I don't remember him saying that either.
Do you have a handle on when it's going to be done?
No, I do not.
Okay.
It's being expedited.
Okay, and that yeah.
Yeah.
If I could add,
Mhm.
oh, thank you, sorry. All of the briefs and all of our experts' testimony was submitted to the court and is part of the record. So even though it wasn't spoken out loud, it is part of the record. Just wanted to add that piece.
Sure.
I agree with what everybody else said.
It's true.
Thank you. Jack?
So I want to express my appreciation to Ralph's recounting the hearing. I think he did a good job, and Kathy and Sue added important elements. We have to recall that on Friday, 1,500 pages of materials were submitted to the judge. It really did appear that he was aware of the content of the pleadings and the reports. And he seemed very, very concerned about the fact that this is headed for an appeal without regard to what he does. So that's the overarching theme, is that he knows that anything that he does is going to be reviewed by the Court of Appeals. Previously, Gelman has appealed both our status as interveners and whether or not this 3-day hearing should have even occurred. And when it went to the Court of Appeals, the court declined to decide that on its merits and just let this proceed, which is not unusual for an appeal from a preliminary decision of the trial court. So the judge knows that at some point in time, the Court of Appeals is going to speak to the merits of this case and all of these little details that have come up so far. And he seems to want the Court of Appeals to speak in a broad sense about the scope of his authority in what he's about to do, and give him some direction. And I completely understand that. Nonetheless, the hearing on Monday was a little confusing, because I think that was what was haunting him, is the fact that whatever he does goes to the Court of Appeals. And so when Nate Dukes got to the point in his opening argument that was pointing out all of the things that all of the parties already agree on, I think that was a very attractive point of view for the judge. And so the judge said, well, why don't we just proceed on all of the things that you already agree on? It's his nature to look for that common point of view. The polluter raised the issue that the consent judgment includes some goodies that we gave up in exchange for the interveners being dismissed, agreeing not to challenge our discharge permits, and not going to the EPA. And if you exclude those from the total bargain, then we don't get the benefit of the bargain. I think that's the good news. I think that what came out of Monday is the fact that we're going to proceed on those other points. We continue to be interveners. We continue to pursue EPA involvement in this. And when Gelman seeks discharge permits, we can speak up on those points. And so it's really important that that settlement agreement wasn't part of what the judge is going to order. It was my understanding that the interveners collectively will draft the order to try to reflect what the judge said, but the judge said things that were seemingly contradictory. So there's a challenge there. And those attorneys will distribute a draft order to their clients, under the privilege and confidentiality, so the rest of us won't see it. But we do have some good champions, Sue and Kathy, who will get to look at that and press for what's important to us. Now, the judge did say that he intends to go forward on what we agree on. And there's a substantial question as to what we do agree on. Do we disagree with Gelman on all of the points that Dan and Roger have raised in the past? Or are the disagreements just those disagreements that appeared in the pleadings that were presented to the judge on Friday? So that right there, that's a significant question. But I'm confident because we do have Kathy and Sue, who will get a chance to look at the proposed order before it goes to the polluter, that we have strong voices advocating on our behalf. So I'm hopeful, but I did walk away from that Monday hearing as confused as everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Jason Morgan, and then Ralph McKee.
Thanks, Beth. I guess very quickly, hi, everyone. Very quickly, I think Jack summarized things very well, along with everyone else. My take on this, based on what I've read from our attorney, is that this is overall pretty good for us, probably, but a lot of the details still need to be seen. Generally giving us most of the good parts of the CJ that we wanted without the bad parts. That's a very simplistic summary of it, but I think that's my general takeaway. And we still are able to continue pursuing EPA Superfund designation to kind of layer on top of everything that's in the CJ. So it seems like this is a good thing. I say that with cautious optimism because I don't know if I can get excited about anything in this process without having us go one step back at some point. But it does seem like this is overall a very positive step, and that the judge was acting somewhat in our favor, or pretty strongly in our favor, to try and just move this forward rather than it being stuck where it's been stuck for so long. So I think this is pretty positive. I think it really is a testament to everyone on this call's hard work to make sure the judge understood our concerns and that he didn't order, or hopefully will not order, any of the bad things that we were opposed to. I think this has been a huge, huge effort, and he has really listened to what the community has been saying. And by the community, I mean, especially all of you who have been such strong advocates on this. So thank you all very much.
It does seem like, though, that if I'm hearing it correctly, that there's enough concern about what was said and there's enough contradictory things being said by the court that when an order is drafted, it sounds like it's very likely to be challenged by either us or Gelman or somebody. And then we're going to be back in the same thing with relying on, I guess, both parties, if there's 1,500 pages of material submitted, which I haven't seen, but no expert testimony. So that'll be interesting.
Mike, that's why we still have the EPA process moving as well. So I think that's—
Oh, I think that's good. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's one of the big things for the EPA process, that we have both tracks moving at the same time. This really does seem like again, very cautiously optimistic, but it does seem like essentially what we want is to keep moving both of these things down the road at the same time.
I would like to comment. I hear the optimism. I was in total nightmare panic mode until the last 10 minutes of that hearing when Roger spoke and the judge finally said, "Oh, that's exactly what we're going to do." Until then, I thought I was in a bad acid trip nightmare. And I'm not kidding. And I've been in some really, really weird courtroom scenes, and this was one of the worst that I'd ever watched. And I'm still not. Maybe that's just my nature to see the downside of things, or the lawyer's worst case scenario mindset. But it wasn't until the last time Roger talked that the judge responded in a clear, positive way that we weren't doing CJ4. And I would predict that that Mike Caldwell and his crew are going to rely on the earlier statements of the judge, and they're going to fight for that tooth and nail. And there's going to be a 7-day order fight whenever the next motion day is.
Right.
And there's going to be the battle of the transcripts and what did the judge really mean. And the judge is going to have to make a decision. And to follow up on what Jack said, I thought about this hard yesterday, and I talked to Kathy Noel about this a little bit too. If you go back to the beginning of the, when it was reported to the judge that there was that the fourth consent judgment had been rejected, he was disappointed. Then, if you'll recall, he did though say, nope, we're going to have this hearing. And Gelman went into a frenzy and said, no, you can't do that. And at first, the next hearing, the judge said, the Gelman raised some pretty good arguments, maybe we won't have the hearing. Then you had the formal hearing on the motion for reconsideration, and the judge said, we're going for the trial, full bore, it's going to happen. Then we get halfway into the opening statements and he pulls the plug. That is a roller coaster, folks. And what happens at the next hearing, I would not bet my house on. I think the best case scenario is, I think, the way Jason laid it out, that it's mostly forward, and we get the good parts, we get the lower standards and the monitoring wells and that kind of thing. And then we go in there in September and start arguing about things. Who knows what happens with the experts? Who, does their report sit? They have to do it all over again. From a lawyer standpoint, I gotta believe that all of the interveners lawyers and the EGLE lawyers and Gelman's too, their heads are spinning. We're just spectators trying to predict what happens. They're participants. I would not want to be them right now. So, I'm hopeful too, but I really want to see what that draft order says. And I think in my conversations with Kathy Knoll, and I assume that these conversations are going on between all the elected officials in their council about what they want in that order. And I hope the drafts start quickly, because there needs to be some pretty serious review of the details of that order, because remember how long the CJ was. You're talking about 50 pages of complex legal documentation, and the battles of the drafts. Anybody who's been a lawyer's been there. It's going to be a real Donnybrook when that's coming, and the hearing, which I think is inevitable. There's not going to be an agreement. I would be shocked if there was an agreement.
How many appeals can they make on this? For Gelman, delay is all they hope for. It's
well, they can appeal, but it's likely that the same thing will happen as happened last time. They appeal, and it's reasonably likely that the Court of Appeals will say not yet.
Well, and that's why, thank goodness, we've got the EPA working at the same time.
Correct. This is the best argument that you could ever make,
right,
for the EPA versus the state court process.
I would like to add that if I may, Beth, that the judge ordered that Gelman should start the work in the CJ immediately. And so my understanding is that they can appeal, but as they appeal, they must have begun the work.
Well, they'd ask for a stay, and the question is whether the Court of Appeals would grant a stay based on the order. And coincidentally, one of the appellate judges on the order that came out Friday is an old friend of mine. I hope they keep the same. I don't know if any of the lawyers on this call know whether the same panel keeps it once there's an appeal filed like this. It's been too long since I did appellate work to remember that. I really hope that the person I know stays on the panel, but I don't know. I think that might just be random. They get a new panel every time. I don't know.
Ralph, I checked yesterday. They get a new panel every time.
They get a new panel. So that won't help. Who knows who they get, but they to Sue's question, they have to ask for a stay. They clearly would ask for a stay. Connors is not going to give them a stay, obviously, but that's what they'd be asking from the Court of Appeals. I think it's unlikely given the way, and I think Jack's point was dead on, that the reason the judge pulled back on what he had ordered was that he recognizes that the Court of Appeals could view what he did in setting up that hearing without all the usual procedure that goes before as being problematic, and he doesn't want to get rebuked. This is much more of a, how do I put it, a smaller, more or less wild procedure, let's say, to order only the parts that you can agree on, and then we'll do quarterly review and try to incrementally make progress. The judge may be figuring, probably correctly, that there's going to be some push and shove in the settlement of the order, and maybe he can try to get a path to brokering separate little settlement deals on each point. I don't know. That
reminds me of a kabuki dance.
That would be my guess. And I guess, Beth, did you want to segue into the other piece about EGLE now, or do we have EGLE people on the line or on the screen?
We only have Dan today, and we were hoping that Josh Mosier would be here or
Dan.
Brian Nagel, but
I
Do
say
you
one,
want me to, do you
one
want
other
me to
thing.
describe what I would say to them if they were here?
Yeah, Ralph, can I just add one thing about, onto your discussion?
Sure.
I'm not a lawyer. So I look at this slightly differently. And I believe that we're never going to beat Gelman if it's just in the courts, lawyer to lawyer,
Yes,
because they're always going to outfund us. So somehow we've got to use public opinion, and we've got to put Gelman in a position where our side looks very reasonable and their side looks unreasonable based on what they're doing. And I think that, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that Judge Connor sort of set us up for that. So I don't know.
I agree with you up to a point.
Oh, okay.
It really depends on what the judge only has authority to do certain things. And Gelman really doesn't care what we think, and they don't care what the judge thinks either. It's only what the judge can do to them that they worry about. And so the thing here is just whether what good things can we get in court, and can we avoid being set back in court while we wait for the EPA. This is all a holding pattern. We just have to do the best we can.
Yeah.
And to move forward without having that process get derailed.
Well,
let me just step in here at this point.
Okay.
We had an hour set aside for old business. There's a lot of business left in there. And while this is obviously a very important point, it sounds like there was enough confusion that we could keep talking about this and still not know what the hell happened yesterday.
I agree with that. And that's why I wanted to move to the next point, because we need to take a stand, I think, on the with respect to EGLE. And I don't want to just dump this on Mr. Hamill, because he wasn't the person who did the things that we're wound up about, for lack of a better term. But I think there has to be a very serious conversation with the EGLE council and with their upper management, because in their papers, they disparage the leaders of this group in a way that I think is extremely counterproductive. And it was what I would call a gratuitous cheap shot. And
yeah, that's on as our last item of discussion, but
I don't have anybody to yell at right now. So, I'll leave that to Beth, whether you want to address that or leave it for some other time.
Let's try to get through some of this other stuff first.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
can go later.
let's
And
do
I
that.
just
We'll
want
try
to
to
go-
get back, obviously.
Yeah. There's two more hands though. Is that Linda Burrauer and Sue Schenk real quick, and then we'll move on?
Sorry, I meant to take it down. I just wanted to say that I have a lot of respect for Judge Connors. I don't really know exactly what he was trying to do, but I believe that he. Well, I guess I'll just say, like, he's a very big advocate of peacemaking courts, and I think that he was trying to change the approach from something that was clearly not functioning to something that was functioning. Now, whether that's really going to succeed or not is, obviously to be seen. But I wanted to acknowledge that as wild as it seemed, I'm hoping that he had a method going there, and that it really helps to get this plume cleaned up, because that is absolutely positively the point of all of this. So that's all. Thanks.
All right, we done with that one for now?
Well, Linda, you've had your hand raised for a minute.
It's okay. I had a question about the legal proceedings, but I don't think we're ever going to get clarity tonight. So you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks.
We can talk after the meeting too, if people want to hang on to.
All right,
discuss
so the
more.
next item that we're coming up to, obviously, is the compliance wells at Scioview and have been abandoned since 2019. Is there anything really to talk about that, Dan, at this point?
Well, there's no update. Again, as I stated, we're waiting for the CJ and where wells are going to be. We wanted to place a compliance well, replacement compliance well in the most logical location to evaluate the new criteria, the 7.2 criteria. So I don't have a planned a date or a planned update right now.
Okay, great, thanks. Then back to you, I guess. When will EGLE and the county sample Allen Creek drain next?
The next sampling of Allen Creek drain will be done by Gelman. Will be completed by Gelman as part of the MS4 violation investigation that is also later on in the agenda. Gelman submitted an Allen Creek drain monitoring work plan on April 15th to EGLE and the Washtenaw County. And the work plan, you know, we're reviewing the work plan, and Evan and I have talked, and I had said I was going to try to set something up at the end of this week or next week, kind of a review, initial review phone call. The court hearing, getting ready for the court hearing, kind of, put a little delay in that when we could schedule that. But I hope to schedule that here maybe by the end of the week, but definitely next week, where Water Resources Division, RRD, my division, and Evans group as Washtenaw County will take a look at that work plan. In the meantime, I haven't posted it yet on the webpage. I will do that. I will start that process tomorrow with our person that posts the reports and data and information that we get. It will be posted under the selected documents tab on the webpage if people are familiar with that. So I'm going to try to get that. It takes a couple of days usually to get it on. I may be able to rush it and get it on, by the end of this week. So that's the plans there. We had for the next sampling of the Allen Creek drain system.
I'm glad to hear that. I think those numbers keep going up every time we test it pretty dramatically. So we need to get a handle on that. More, having wells would be great, but
the work plan will be out there. I'll get it on the webpage. You can take a look at it. We had an initial call with Gelman. It is what we kind of came up with. It's nothing that we didn't expect. We have a lot of questions in the sense of, okay, they're sampling within the Allen Creek, in the pipe itself. That's the start part, the first part of it. But Evan has made it clear that to Gelman and, during our meetings that okay, we need to do that as soon as possible, but I also want activities. I also want sampling in the groundwater outside the pipe,
right.
I mean, this summer, quickly, you can get the data, evaluate what's in the pipe, predict, kind of estimate where it's coming into the pipe, and then start sampling outside the pipe.
This has been going on for 3 years. So this MS4 should be dealt with sooner than later.
That's the current status.
Are they going to do split samples?
Am I going to split with them? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I will do. I had anticipated doing some sampling, split samples where I'll send it to my lab like I've done for monitoring wells and other locations in the past.
Great.
And Dan, this is Dan. Will we be required to comment on that document before you approve at the state level?
Well, that's why I'm going to post it, Dan. One of the big requests and discussions, heated discussions, were the continuation of the interveners. I want to manage expectations.
But this has nothing to do. The MS4 violation isn't covered by the confidentiality agreement or the consent judgment. That's a Part 201 regulation. This is a different regulation, Dan.
Absolutely, but the request under that program normally. Under that under the MS4 program, normally the public doesn't have. It is a regulator versus a regulator reviewing the document from the potential violator. So I mean, if it was other sites, likely the answer would be, well, no, we're not, not going to send it out for public comment. It'll be an in-house
The
regulated.
card was the one that pushed this
I know that.
3 years ago. It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
I'm going to post it so you guys will be able to see it. And then I don't want to say absolutely that, at this process, but I would anticipate, because of the concerns from the interveners during this other process, wanting input on work plans and documents and what's going on at the site, that we would take a serious look of, making sure that those complaints, those complaints are thought about, internally, and potentially request comments from from CARD, and the stakeholders.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't put this agenda together, and Evan's name is at the end of this item. Is he on the call?
No.
Okay. All right, anybody got anything else on this?
Evan and I have talked with phone calls this last week, or right before all the stuff we had to submit to the court. And so we are both on board, and with his team and Water Resources Division, Christy, and we are all planning to have a review phone call, and we were going to try to set it up at the end of this week, but definitely next week, and that's where it stands. So
I think there's a lot of blame to go around here. I think the Water Resources Commissioner's Office and EGLE have been dragging their feet on this for over 3 years. A clear violation. So we need to get on it.
Yep.
Okay, it takes us to item F. Patty, is this yours?
It is.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I don't have much of an update on the basement sampling. Obviously, we've been in a drought lately, so not a lot of wet basements, but I did reach out to all the folks that had indicated they wanted to be in the survey, just to remind them of who to contact. I did get some feedback from people, essentially like, nope, still dry right now, not anything yet. So as we go into spring, hopefully we'll see some of that. So more to come.
You might think of testing to the west or to the east, where it's low, higher groundwater to the east. The city's paying for these tests, and there's nothing coming up. It's really disappointing that we're paying. That taxpayers are paying for this.
The people that are in this survey, Vince, are people who have said they had wet basements. It's not just a crapshoot. So it's, it was COVID last year, and now we're in a drought. So
yeah, it's a drought situation. Yeah, no question.
Yep.
Okay, Beth, you have an update on the sampling location, bromate?
No, nothing this month. I'm sorry. I'll try to get on it for next month. I'll leave it there.
Okay, takes us to Dan Vicknell on the Superfund site designation status. Dan?
Okay, Beth, did you want to launch the presentation? And I'll be very brief in my review of it. Or I can bring it up, whatever is best for you. But we had talked about maybe you launching that thing.
You're muted, Beth.
Can you start, Dan, while she gets it up?
Yeah, sure. As we all know, the good words have been from the state that they sent a concurrence letter over to US EPA, and US EPA now is in the process of continuing the designation of the Gelman site as a US EPA Superfund site. So I thought it would be prudent to talk about what the status is of this work. If you might remember, there's a chart that shows the Superfund site assessment process. And essentially what it has as a first step is to petition US EPA to conduct a preliminary assessment. And they'll then generate a hazardous ranking score. And if that hazardous ranking score is over 28.5, then they can continue the process to designate a site as an NPL site, commonly called a Superfund site, with state concurrence. So they calculated a value of greater than 28.5, as a hazardous ranking score in 2017 when they did their preliminary assessment. And as we all know, earlier this year, the state gave the concurrence. So the next step that they have, oh, thank you, Beth. If you could skip to the chart. Thank you. As you can see in this chart on the upper left here, it says preliminary assessment, and then the diamond is as if it's over 28.5, what happens, there's a yes, and it goes down on the left side to site inspection, or most people call it site assessment. And what that means is that they need to go and look and characterize all the potential routes of exposures and potential risks. And this includes also, as part of the site inspection, site assessment, determining whether all the past data is viable. In the preliminary assessment, they didn't collect any data. In the site investigation step, they will collect data. And as part of the things that they will do, they will determine whether the state and EGLE's data is of high quality. And they'll do that by splitting a sample of drinking water or groundwater or soil or whatever media with Gelman and EGLE, and have the US EPA lab analyze it. And then they'll compare all of the analyses and see if they match up, or if they don't, they see that they may have a problem. This would include installing maybe some additional wells, but generally it'll be sampling the existing drinking water, residential wells, and groundwater wells as it relates to groundwater. However, in 2017, they had a whole long list of issues that need to be addressed. If we could go to the next slide, Beth. And skip to another one there, Beth. Next one, please. And this long list includes the fact that they don't have samples at the site soil that are less than 10 years old. They didn't have access to laboratory quality control data. There's other contaminants besides dioxane that have not been looked at. There's limited source investigation at the site concerning the depths and extent of contamination. There's been no sediment studies on the Huron River for dioxane. And there's been no investigations on site as to the structures, whether they could be impacted by vapor intrusion, for example. As this list is from the 2017 preliminary assessment. And Beth, I think you have this posted to the card site. If you look at one of the problems is they're not really looking at all of the potential exposures. So for example, if we could go to the next slide, Beth. They're not looking at all of the residential drinking water that could be ingested. For example, they're not recognizing that Ann Arbor Charter Township private wells could be impacted. This is they being DEQ and Gelman. They have not, Gelman and DEQ, looked at building vapor intrusion inhalation risk, dermal contact ingestion inhalation from a flooded basement. They haven't looked at construction worker dermal contact incidental ingestion and inhalation. They haven't looked at the former Gelman plant, as we just talked about, whether those workers are getting impacted or whether the building occupants are becoming impacted. And so one of the things that is good for us, I believe, is that they will use method 522 for drinking water, which is about 14 times lower than the EGLE lab and the Gelman lab. So this will help us understand the real extent of the contamination down to significant levels. One of the major paths that we've all been talking about here and in the past is in West Park and the Old West Side. There's been really no studies done. And I think that CARD could ask them again, could ask US EPA the way we've asked EGLE, to do some monitoring wells there. And if we go to the next slide, Beth, next slide. You can see here, these are the locations of the borings that were done by EGLE in 2016. And this is 7th Street in the center. And down on the right side, over by the 800, that's Chapin. Well, they didn't put any monitoring wells down in the lowest level where there is shallow groundwater in close contact to the buildings. So in 2016, before they did this work, I provided as GEA some suggestions. If we could go to the next slide, Beth. That they put monitoring wells where all these little yellow dots are. And it's a very simple thing that can be done, but there's no understanding if you go from monitoring well 82 to the east where the groundwater is flowing, there's no monitoring wells between shallow groundwater monitoring wells between up there at the junction of Jackson and Dexter Ann Arbor Road all the way down to the West Park area. So I think we could ask them that be done as an example, and I'm sure there's other things that we could ask for that would help understand the real exposure pathways. If we go to the last slide, I think it's Beth. You know, people had said in city council meetings that US EPA is not going to really allow much input into the remedial process, and that's just not correct. They have a whole system that will allow the community to become involved and to have input into this. And right now, what US EPA is doing is they're gearing up, having geared down for 2 years since 2017, to begin this site inspection process. If we could go back now, Beth, to that third slide where you have the chart again. That's the one. Thank you. Thank you. And as we saw in the site inspection, what's going to happen, they're going to go to the next diamond, and from their additional data, they're going to recalculate the hazardous ranking score. If it's over 28.5, then it'll slide down to the last diamond, and it will ask, are there other avenues for remediation? As we've seen, the answer is really no to the left. And that's when they would ask for state concurrence again, complete their package, and propose this site, potentially Gelman site, to be on a national priorities list. And that would be through the Federal Register. They would give notice that it is US EPA's intent to have the Gelman site become a national priorities list site, Superfund site, and receive public comments for 60 days. And after review of those public comments, EPA will make the final decision, yes or no, this is or is not going to become a Superfund site, the Gelman site. So that's kind of the 7 Mile High quick run through. And if you look back in information that's been provided, particularly in the GEA background and issues document, you'll see a more thorough discussion of the US EPA community involvement program and how this flow diagram works.
Thank you, Dan.
Eric's got a question.
Any questions?
Eric? Turn your mic on, Eric.
I had been wondering how many places they monitor Allen Creek.
When they did their study most recently, I want to say, Vince, there was like 7 or 8 different stations, sampling stations in the stormwater drain that they sampled.
Intermittent, yeah, nothing.
And at the outlet?
They're doing more tests now, like at West Park, Chapin Street, and now 8th Street. And those locations were suggested by me and some other card members that there's a lot of water flowing through those drains, and even in a drought. And so it was a very easy test to do. And lo and behold, they came back positive, and they've kept going up. They're at 49 part per billion at West Park now. The screening level for 1,4-dioxane is 29 part per billion. So we're getting up there, and it's a pretty steep jump it's going every time they test it. So those were the easy tests that we asked them to do. Now, I think like Dan has says, we need monitoring wells, and we need basically a cleanup, because this is now getting very close to the surface. Where they're testing West Park is like 8 feet, 10 feet below the surface. Chapin Street's much closer. When DEQ tried to do a well in West Park, it artesianed way back, maybe 15 years ago. I mean, they had to close it off because the water pressure was so high there's no way they could put a well there. So that just gives you an idea. So we have a lot of seeps on the west side. That's why I call it Water Hill. It's got that name for a reason. So there's a lot of near surface water. And one of the main concerns we're having is that some of the schools could be potentially at risk. We have, Mack School, Slauson Middle School, are very close to the elevation where we had high concentrations upstream. So it falls away towards the West Park and the river. And as it falls away, it's like cutting away a cake and you expose these layers. And so they're coming out at West Park. There's some talk that there are seeps at Mack School. I have not seen those. Jeff Hayner's on the line here. He might be able to help with that. But it's definitely an issue for Slauson because the drain is right at the same level as the school, and it's at 11 part per billion now. And that drain is right near the surface. There's water flowing into it. So those are real concerns we have. And I think, we want to make sure that we don't have people getting exposed. And EPA will step in, and we've talked about this in the CARD group. We need to think about the kind of things we would like to get EGLE and EPA to work on quickly when EPA picks up and takes on this task. And that's something we can talk about at some point.
Jeff Hayner, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just so be real brief. So I've had 2 passes back through Mack School on 2 different kind of weather pattern weeks, and they've done a little bit of work around there, but it has yet to be wet in any considerable way like I've witnessed it in the past years. And we walked all around the school, my daughter and I, one time, and it's just not, it's not like I had seen it in the past. And so I can confirm that drought feeling.
We're in a drought.
Yeah. Second thing, I had a question. It's sort of odd, but when I walk around town, I see monitoring wells everywhere. You can hardly not find a monitoring well on the brownfield areas around our community, and especially down along the River North Main area and down in there, but Depot and so on. Is there ever an sharing of monitoring wells? Dan, are you ever able to identify other wells from other projects and know what their screen levels are and dip in there and use them instead of putting our own wells in? Or perhaps that's a question for Tetra Tech.
Well, we can ask Patty, but they have a very good mapping of where all their wells are. Not all of their monitoring wells are being sampled though. And there are other monitoring wells like the Eaton wells that are near the edge of the plume around the old West Side area. So there's other monitoring wells. I don't know whether anyone has put together the mother of all maps that show where all the monitoring wells are about the Ann Arbor area. Dan, are you familiar with maybe such a map? But I'm not familiar with any map that has the Gelman, the Eaton, and any other well that might be around.
Roger's got a pretty good handle on it, but Dan Hamill may also have maps and recordings of the location.
Related to the Gelman side, yes. I mean, we have those maps, but if you're talking about integrating all sites of environmental contamination, no, we haven't integrated or generated a large area where a large a document or a figure or map that has all monitoring wells. I mean, we can get ideas, where we have on the web page, a site of environmental contamination. You can identify sites, but you don't have specifics. You'd have to go to the files of the underground.
Yeah, I've done the lookup. Like I was on a job on Depot, and there were 7 wells that were numbered, and I just went and looked them up on the site to see what the project was going on there. And I've done that a couple other places. So
to have a large, that has not been coordinated, by EGLE anyway, bringing all sites of environmental contamination in that area, what's available, what could be sampled. Again, you would have to get specific permission, access to wells. You may have data, but most wells aren't during normal site investigation activities. 1,4-dioxane is not usually identified for, it's for underground storage tank sites or even some of the other waste sites where like dry cleaner sites and those types of things. 1,4, may not be on the contaminants of concern, so it may not be looked for. So
Jeff,
There hasn't
Jeff,
been,
were those wells you're talking about part of the DTE site, the former coal gasification plant adjacent to the train station?
Well, across the street, and some on that, some there, some across the street, up Summit, further up the hill. There's a project called the Garnet that's going in that has some wellheads on it just below that. And then a bunch run out on North Main, all back through the, and I know what some of those are for, you know, but just a variety of them. As I come across them, I just make a little note. It's just a thing. If I see them, I write them down.
And do you
I just
think
wondered if any of these would service, you know, and for any other need. It's not
Well,
something's been kind of wondering about.
Dan was associating every one of them with some sort of contaminant. Are they all just monitoring, or are they actually at a site that there's probable contamination?
No, they are like the one on Depot. Then there was a remedial action done by DTE on that location. They took out the top 8 feet of topsoil, and they had tankers pumping for 2-3 days running out of there, and they did a remediation on that. But other ones are, you know, they're all different. So,
Any other questions on the Superfund designation or process?
Patty?
I just wanted to add to that, respond to your question initially, Jeff, that back when Matt Nod was at the city, he had started a database of sites because it was important to him also to understand. And I think during his time, they started the right-of-way permit. So whenever any wells were going to go within their right-of-way, they got the data. City of Ann Arbor gets the data. I don't know if that's been kept up or if it ever came to completion, but I know there is some data at the city.
thanks for that. I'll dig that up. It must exist.
Yeah, I think his plan was to have a GIS base for it, but I don't know if it ever came together.
Yeah, I'm doing some other GIS stuff, so that's a good opportunity for that layering. So thanks for that tip.
Yep.
I'll chime in again. This is Bill Shakora. I am environmental lawyer who actually used to represent Eaton, and I know for a fact that Abby Elias, who used to be a city attorney, I think is now again on contract, does have access to those wells and that information. So that could be a source to find out if they are testing for 1,4-dioxane.
I have seen that data in the past. I haven't seen the most recent from Eaton, and I've only ever seen the volatiles. I haven't seen 1,4-dioxane tested in those wells.
Okay. Ms. Elias claims to have officially retired on the 30th of April.
Okay. I don't believe it.
I don't either. I don't either, because she was at our meeting.
Yep.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, so we're pressing time here. Item I, Vince, I don't know what thank you's all about, but if you want to do it, do it.
I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate everybody on all the work that we did to get EPA Superfund. Yeah, it was a lot of work and it was a big effort, and I think it was totally worth it. I think EPA is our only hope, really. I mean, they're going to have a federal standard. They won't have the very weak Michigan standards. And so it will be a night and day difference. And I think EGLE has talked about, working with EPA. They've worked with EPA at a lot of other sites. So there's no conflict here. We're all trying to get to the same thing, a cleaned up aquifer, which is worth a huge amount of money nowadays. fresh water, fresh, clean water is not something you take for granted anymore. And I think hopefully.
Can I just say thank you to all the elected officials that worked so hard and went to all those meetings and every closed session thing, and we appreciate.
Yeah, all the encouragement, definitely. And one other thing we need to think about is, as a group, what kinds of things do we think EPA should be involved in right away? Like for the schools, the basement exposures, vapor intrusion, how they're going to work with the vapor intrusion issues, and collect the data and provide a meaningful way to have the public access that data. So, we need as a group to think about what we'd like to see happen down the line here and to start to make some decisions on that. And there will be a citizens group typically with the Superfund. Dan Bicknell probably knows about that, but they charter a citizens group. And so CARD will be a good resource for that. And so that's something else we need to make sure that we're considered as, you know, a logical location for a lot of very knowledgeable people. So, but thanks everybody for all your work. A lot of time and energy, and I really, everybody, you know, deserves a big slap on the back and be proud of the effort. And hopefully this is the start of the end. We'll get, you know, hopefully we'll get it done sooner than later. It's not going to take 20 or 30 years like some people are saying, I don't think.
No, it's
not
going
that
to
hard.
take 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think there's technology. In fact, Donaher, the owner of this mess, is actually experts at cleaning up 1,4-dioxane. So we'll see. Thanks.
Okay, item 4, Dan, what do you want to tell us about the NPDES permit update?
I've checked on, as I do for every CARD meeting, I've checked, I don't have an update. It's the same. They're still in internal review. Again, they've promised to, when that is done, they're going to schedule public meetings so you will know and be able to ask questions for the permit and voice your concerns or, you know, with the permit during that meeting. So.
Okay.
Can I ask for this B topic for, we're back to court and EGLE stuff. Can I ask Ralph to just, what did you want to say, Ralph, about, we're very disappointed in the brief from EGLE and the expert report from EGLE, and I'm just disappointed in EGLE, period. And
I think the real question is, what should we do about it? It happened. I would like to just briefly describe what it is, because I assume a lot of people on this screen haven't really read the stuff in any kind of depth. So I think a brief description of what happened is in order. The brief that EGLE filed, I only have a couple small problems with. One, that they called the rejection of the CJ disappointing, which, and that sort of led into the, every time that Brian Negel is in court or at meetings or in discussions, it always seems like he really wanted that. That was his thing, and he's still pining for it, even though it's been rejected. And that reflects badly when you're in court fighting for something better than that. And that was one of the concerns I had even at the hearing yesterday, that, you know, he and the Gelman lawyers would just love it if we just all go away and go to CJ4, no matter what poison pills or other bad things are in it. That's a concern. The other thing that I was concerned about is that he indicated in his brief that he didn't think that the judge should order where the discharge of the Park Lake well water would go, that should just be left to the permitting process. And that seems to me to be backwards. Why don't you just have that done up front and have the judge decide it? Why would you start working on the Park Lake well or delay it until some year-long permit process happened that might get appealed, and if it gets rejected, what do you do now? That made no sense to me. It just seems to me like a sort of a we want to protect our turf kind of thing. But those are minor points. The major point was in the expert report. The expert Kevin Lund essentially spent a whole page accusing Beth Collins and Roger Rayle of spewing misinformation during the Lockwood development hearings, and leaving aside whether Beth and Roger said anything that was incorrect, which I'll leave mostly to Beth. He didn't need to say any of that. The whole reasoning for the whole purported reason to put that in there was to simply say this is why they needed to get better software to more accurately describe what's happening with the plume. And all he had to do was have one sentence that says, we updated our software such that we'd have a better ability to show the plume to stakeholders and to the court. That's all he had to say. Instead, he spent a whole page essentially accusing Beth and Roger of spewing information. And to me, that is completely unacceptable as a public servant, that you just don't do that. And the thing that bothered me maybe the most is that it appears to be motivated by petty revenge, that because apparently Mr. Lund was working for a private developer, Lockwood, and he lost. The development got denied, and this looked to me like he was just trying to slam Beth and Roger because he lost. And parenthetically, I have serious questions as to what the EGLE moonlighting rules are. You've got someone who's going to be an expert witness in a major court case, who's working for a private developer, and everything he says in that hearing can be impeached. He can be cross-examined on what he said at Lockwood. And I don't know if they were paying him, they were not paying him. I have all sorts of questions about that.
He did not work. He was not working for the developer. He was asked to review the information and how, what was that information in the respect of would it affect the Gelman plume. He was not paid by the developer.
The city asked him, Dan?
He had to come to the meeting. And so I want to put that point. I want to make sure that is made available at this CARB meeting. He was not working. EGLE was not moonlighting.
Well,
was he asked by the city, Dan?
No, he was asked by Lockwood Developer, and I have FOIAs between him and them, which this was 3 years ago. This was dead. It was done. I don't know why he had to bring it up in this report at all.
I'm not contesting that. I'm just saying.
What did you see this report, Dan? Did the AG? Did everybody read this? Did the judge read it? Why would he disparage the executive board members of CARD? Why would he even discuss this when his information is wrong? If any of you are interested, if you click on that top link, he got the west and east wrong both times. He was asked to see if the stormwater infiltration machines that shove 57,000 gallons of stormwater down into the aquifers, if they might impact the movement of the plume. You can see I have documents galore, an EPA toolkit that says you don't place these over contaminated groundwater. I have Washtenaw County's thing on hotspots that I got from Evan Pratt that says you don't place these over contaminated groundwater unless you don't care where it pushes the plume. And I don't care how many clay layers you have. Roger Rayle did an analysis on it, and like I said, this is very unprofessional and it's unbecoming of a state official. I feel like shame on EGLE for bringing this up. He mentions misinformation 4 times in one paragraph, that I was spewing misinformation. I don't see any of his data or studies that prove.
There's also the Lemke data was also.
I also have a letter from Larry Lemke saying
Dr. Larry Lemke, an expert on this.
Complicated. I mean, I'm only giving you 2 documents. I'm ready to file a formal complaint.
Yep.
And I'm sorry you're the only one here today, Dan, to hear this, but.
Yeah, again, Dan, I don't want to put this on you, and I'll take I'll take your word for the.
I don't take it personal. I mean, I know you guys have complaints. I've always said that, and you have valid concerns and complaints. It just was presented tonight, like saying he was on a payroll for a developer, and he was not. He was voicing, his opinion as a hydrogeologist, as what EGLE has evaluated sites like this. That's all.
They just asked. They did not present it as such. They're asking.
Don't worry about that part.
Okay.
And I will pass on.
But what did this have to do with anything to do with this court hearing? What is the point of bringing it up?
I didn't.
But see, Beth, hold it one sec, Beth. Let's not put that, let's not put
I
that
know.
on Dan, because he doesn't know the answer to
I
that.
will make sure that I voice, for our Gelman team. I will let them know that you are very upset about the brief that EGLE presented and the specific content under the expert report
I've made corrections. He can click on the agenda link that I have there and he can see all of my comments.
And the real problem, Dan, is that there are also factual misrepresentations in that same report, which could have seriously compromise his ability to effectively testify. Because if he made misrepresentations about that hearing, what other problems are there? It's a nightmare. Very, very bad.
I will pass that on. I got a little excited there, Beth. I just knew he was not on a payroll when it was.
Oh,
that's a minor issue. Yeah, that's a minor issue.
I don't care about that, but I know that he was being contacted by the developer. They were asking, are you sure you can make it to the Tuesday night planning commission meeting? Will you be there at the planning commission meeting? And he confirmed, and it was back and forth between him and the Lockwood developer, not the city staff. And
the real point that I wanted to raise is simply, since I'm a newcomer to this group, I don't have the long background and history that a lot of other people on screen do, and there needs to be some sort of formal or informal contact with, and I was hoping that Brian or Jason or Josh or somebody like that was going to be here, and I would just have it out with them straight up.
Yep, I will tell you that more the AG, Josh usually is at the June meeting is a quarterly.
We're not waiting for that.
So, well, I'm going to
We're
keep
not
this
waiting
on
for
the
that.
agenda. It's not going away anytime soon. And until it's corrected and all the proper people get the correct information. His easts and wests are wrong. It was like done by a elementary school child. I'm appalled at this report. Appalled.
Retract it from the record.
You had said
Right,
you
Beth?
put comments on the agenda link. I'm
Yeah,
not.
if under the topic I was going to speak on it, there's a link to his report. I
Okay.
put it in a Google Drive and I made comments galore on the right-hand side and corrected all his misinformation that he put in that report.
And that's on the Google, the meeting invite tonight has a link for the agenda. That's the latest one that, I want to make sure that
Yes.
EGLE, takes a look at that and takes a look at your comments.
Make sure you file for overtime, Beth.
No.
I think the sense is here is that a number of folks, card folks would like to have a conversation with Josh about this. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Is that where we're going?
Or Brian or somebody higher.
Yeah, I think.
Or how about
Maybe Dana Nessel.
I'd like to,
That's who
yeah.
I'd like to talk to. I'd like to talk
Director
to Dana
Clark.
Nessel.
Well,
I
you
would
have to
like to
go
talk
up the
to Director
channels, though.
Clark.
Yeah. But Josh
Clark.
would be a good.
So we'll
Well,
try to.
how do we
set
want to proceed? Because let's make this a request. I mean,
Okay.
we want to know where we want to go. If we want to speak with the AG, do you want to speak with Brian and Josh first or not?
Yeah, we could go up the chain of command, but I just feel that these disparaging remarks towards members of CARD that are volunteer citizens, that this had nothing.
I don't think there's any dispute about that. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out who's going to schedule this meeting and how are we going to do it and who are we going to talk to?
Right, exactly right.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Who just?
this is Linda Burrower. She's has her
Okay.
hand raised.
Yeah, I would like to make a suggestion. I really don't like the idea of getting Dan in the middle of this. I don't think it's fair to him. I am also relatively new to this group, but I just want to say that as a non-lawyer and somebody new who I think got up to speed fairly quickly, all the legal briefs that I read from Brian Miguel, I was appalled at. To me, it sounded like he was obstructionist. He wasn't an ally of the interveners. In that one brief to dismiss one of the hearings, he actually said bad things about the interveners. I mean, that's just not helpful. So my suggestion, I don't even know if it would be helpful for somebody like Ralph to talk to Brian or to the Attorney General, Dana. I think it's better to ask a politician who has some credibility at the state level. Like, I don't want to put this on Kathy Griswold, but I'm just mentioning her name because I know she's close to, somewhat close to Yusuf and Debbie Dingle. And I'm thinking somebody like Yusuf or even Debbie Dingle would be the appropriate person to relay those concerns directly to as high up as she can get into the AG's office. And it's got to be above Brian Negley's head, so I guess that would be Dana Nessel. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Linda. We have Jeff Hayner and James Damore, and then we probably should make a decision and move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the decision on this. I think that that's a reasonable idea, that it gets asked around, who can we have a chance to talk to Liesel or somebody. It was outside of those comments in the report. I found that report really interesting and enlightening, and I thought it was interesting to read through it and understand how they make the models. And on page 20, something really jumped out at me, where it says the first challenge was organizing all relevant information into a useful format, which took considerable time. And I thought, Roger, where are you? Where are you, Roger? That could have been you saying that, And that is a problem we continue to face, is it not? I don't know what the solution for that's going to be, but even in this expert report, he recognizes that that's a challenge. And I think that line could be extracted and put in front of someone who is making a decision on what to enter into the record, and say, look, we need some help with this. We need to get our formatting in order. We need something to compensate for the considerable time it takes. So I just want to point that out. Thanks.
James.
If I may, I guess one quick question to Dan. Is Mr. Lund still on payroll? I just want to be clear with EGLE at this present time.
What's the question again? I'm not sure.
Is Mr. Lund still on payroll with EGLE at this present time?
Yes.
Or did he retire?
He has changed divisions. He is no longer in my division, RRD. He's in the waste management division, but because he's the most most knowledgeable about the technical aspects, the modeling that we presented in the brief, and that he has worked, he is still active on the Gelman team, but he is
okay.
Yeah, James, in the expert report, it lays out what his current position is.
Okay. My one other observation in terms of which, however anecdotal, I did observe Mr. Lund exchanging cards with members of the Lockwood development team and the various planning commission meeting probably in late 2018. I felt, this is just anecdotal, that his role seemed more advocacy rather than as a civil servant. That is just merely a personal observation. I guess one comment I would make, I think the frustration that I have, and I've been involved in this process for 5 years, I think it's true for any time environmental issue. I feel as though our public servants oftentimes are our biggest, present company excluded here, are perhaps our biggest challenge in terms of moving ahead with the problem. Whether we're fighting City Hall in the city of Ann Arbor, or rather it's just simply on the state level, we have circumstances such as this. I think this has been our biggest challenge in terms of the decades we've been involved in this process. So Dan, certainly it's not on you, and I certainly understand that. But I hope you appreciate just certainly the frustration that all of us have had in moving forward with this. I would say my one comment being made is that I think whatever we do move forward with, it needs to be at least a skip level meeting beyond Mr. Nagel and that of Mr. Lund. And if it goes via Debbie Dingle's office or whoever, it should be at least be a skip level meeting.
What?
Well, I think there are a number of ways we could proceed. I mean, I don't know if it was Ralph or who, but somebody mentioned a motion to strike. And that would certainly be a possibility, at least for someone who's a party. Ann Arbor Township's not, Card's not, but it is not at all uncommon when somebody makes unwarranted statements like that to file a motion to strike it from the pleadings. And then the judge would hear that motion, would give you an opportunity to submit the information that you have, which would further tarnish him, which he would deserve if what you're saying is correct. So the question though is who would submit a motion to strike would have to be, I would think, Ralph, unless you've got some idea, I would think it would have to be one of the interveners.
I'm not sure that I'd have to think hard about wanting to go that right. You probably have more experience in that than I do. The concern I have is that, you don't necessarily want one of your supposed allies to have their expert report thrown out. If the judge does eventually decide to have a trial, you presumably want to use that report unless it's technically bad, which I
haven't read any of that information.
Yeah, I have no idea. I couldn't read that anyway.
Well,
But
he could take that paragraph out.
I think EGLE should revise their own thing. They should just ask to file a revised report with those pages changed.
With the misinformation omitted.
And just getting them to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the right first ask.
So this involves Roger Rayle, so we need to make sure we run it by Roger.
Yep.
So, because he's also included in that problematic language.
Well, I might, maybe I'll come up with a better, instead of it's just in that link, I'll come up with a formal complaint of what is the misinformation that he included, that he was referring to myself and Roger. I can also add Dr. Lemke's email and Roger's analysis, which is extensive. He did a lot.
Yeah, I think at this time, before anybody files anything, Ralph's comments need to be really addressed, and the fact that, is it best just to have this simply removed by filing a substitute document? As I said, I haven't read that material. So I don't know how it would be used in our benefit or whatever, but it's possible that it might be. And if that's the case, it's going to be. I'm not going to be available pretty much for the next couple of weeks. So we need to know who's going to be sort of taking the point of working us all toward a resolution on this.
Okay. My recommendation is that we have a small subcommittee, including Beth and Roger, Ralph, and any of the other interveners that are interested, and that we come up with a tentative plan. And then I will talk to Katie Jasada, she's here right now, and make sure that any action that we take is acceptable to Congresswoman Dingell, because she's been so intimately involved in this process. I think as a courtesy, we should check with her first. Yes. And then make a decision. And if Beth wants to share it with all of CARD, we can do that. But let's get a small group of people working. And it sounds like, Beth, you've done most of the work, but I'm also very, very concerned about the comment that Brian Nagel made about undoing the EPA. And I think that needs to be documented as well.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll get together with and ask if anyone else is interested to just
I could join in on that. I'll join in.
Okay. Rita?
I like Kathy's comment. I think you're absolutely right. A small group should convene. I just wanted to raise one concern that I had when I read that, and I haven't heard it mentioned, and that's why I raised it, is that these are citizens. I was commenting on a regulatory circumstance, and yet to be vilified for raising concerns just struck me as being so antithetical to what government is supposed to be about. And I just don't know if I'm completely off the wall on that, but I just wonder if that's something to kind of put in that comment
That-
as
that
the
was gonna
group of
be
you
my-
discuss it.
That was going to be in my statement, Rita, if I had a chance to talk to Brian or someone else straight up, that they're public servants and what was done there is totally appropriate and
I know.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
absolutely.
If I may, I'd also like to add that when Brian Nagel was speaking to the judge, he kind of huffed about the interveners remaining in and the intervener actions, which, you know, like to remind everybody, especially EGLE, that we are communities representing the people who live in these communities. This isn't personal for us.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I will say that these issues about the Attorney General's representations and how unhelpful they have been to us in addressing this problem has been going on for the entire 15 years that I've been involved trying to chase this around. This is certainly nothing new, and it's distressing to see that it's still there. But there we are.
Well, that's why we got to go Superfund. I mean, we need the federal government in here, not, you know, some second string, third string players.
Right.
We have
Well,
a
and
new
that's-
governor as well.
That's
I
why
think.
the plume has gotten this out of control all these years, is this oversight of, oh, it's going to be fine and it's fine. And we raised concerns that maybe this should be looked into a little closer because of this hot spot. And this is the reaction we get 4 years later after I haven't brought it up anymore. And even Michael Burkhoff tried to set up, I know he told Evan Pratt and Kevin Lund to do studies on other stormwater infiltration systems around here, like in Maple Village, and start seeing if the monitoring wells have gone up. I never brought that up again because I don't even know if they did it or not. But bottom line, I wasn't bringing it back up because it was a sore subject for a lot of people. And I can't even believe he brought it up again.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that CARD, I was told by a division chief that CARD is responsible pretty much for getting vapor intrusion introduced into Michigan oversight. It said if the CARD wasn't involved in this, then it wouldn't have happened. So we've worked very hard to try and improve the quality of life in Michigan, and to treat CARD members, especially anybody in CARD or anybody who's involved in this as a volunteer, is just totally outrageous. And like Dan Bicknell says, EPA is going to be heads and tails above this. And there are a lot of good people at EGLE, no question, but there's a couple bad apples, and I think we need to make sure that they get, you know, brought out and see the light.
Well, it is disappointing, and as I said, it's nothing new. But the question that remains is, how are we going to deal with it? And I think Ralph has made some important points about being careful about how we approach this. Perhaps I mean, I don't know if Representative Dingell can work this out for us, but a meeting with the Attorney General would probably be something that might work in the right direction here.
Yeah.
I think that would be, frankly, I think that would be the best way to approach it if such a meeting could be arranged.
Yeah.
Because there's too much at stake here. Yes, we're pissed off about this, but that's the least important point at this point. We've been dissed before, we're gonna be dissed again. But, you know.
You're not supposed to be dissed by your own teammates.
That's exactly right.
And the supervisors might not even know. That's why I wanted Josh Mosier or somebody to say to me that they all reviewed this. I bet Liesl Clark hasn't seen this, Director Clark. And I wonder if she'd be interested in hearing the true things about what happened in 2018. But like you said, Mike, it's irrelevant.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we have it where I'll take the first pass, since I already half wrote this up for a talking statement. I'll convert that into a written statement, and then we should meet. And once we get an idea of what Representative Dingell wants to do, or has an, you know, whatever ideas are floated, we make a decision fairly quickly. This isn't going to get handled before the hash out of the order probably, but it might be nice if it did. But I don't know how busy everybody's schedules are, how fast it can be done, but I don't want to leave it fester everyone's just going to be angry about it, and it needs to be handled now.
Well, and we don't want to leave this as part of the record. We really don't. We want to make a point of removing those disparaging and false statements from the record, and we should make a point of going over every point that he said was false and showing why it was true and put it on the record.
Yeah, we need to.
Katie, are you still with us here? Maybe not.
I am. I'm here. I'm just
Good. Okay. So I guess you've heard us. I don't know if you can pass that on to Representative Dingell and see if she feels that she could help us out in scheduling a meeting perhaps with the Attorney General or some other suggestion along that line. We'll see where we go.
Katie, you
I
don't have
definitely-
enough to do.
No, I can pass that along. I know she was on for a while
Yeah.
and had to just jump off for something, but I've been trying to keep her updated, and she listened to the first part of tonight, so I'll pass it
Okay.
along.
This is just the culmination of a pattern that's been going on for however many years. And I don't even care what the cause is anymore. But the result is that it's just been stopping the process for 30 years. And this was really the last straw. Disparaging your own clients to the court is just unacceptable.
Right. Well, they're members of CARD as well. Like everybody that attends a meeting is a member of CARD. So I don't understand it. But.
Okay, we're on it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we got a few minutes left and we got a few more items on the agenda. One is volunteers for CARD committees, information infrastructure, press releases, EPA. What is this in relation to? Are we setting up committees here?
I think that was Roger's intent, was to try to get some, committees, since we are growing and we tend to have a lot of issues that come up. So if anyone's interested in any of the above, and we thought about maybe an EPA subcommittee that, people could just, that could be the team that keeps us abreast of what they're doing until, through Dan Bicknell or something. But I don't even know if it's necessary yet. Just
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be setting up any committees tonight. That's for
no.
sure.
And then the other thing, is Rita
Right.
Lacruzo and Bob Bailey. Yeah.
That's right.
Hi, yeah,
we've
so,
done.
okay, very quickly, I was in a conversation with Dr. Vasilis Vasilou, who is the chair of the Department of Environmental Sciences at the Yale School of Public Health. And because he had organized a symposium on 1,4-dioxane back in September. And he said he's going to organize a theme journal issue in a pretty reputable scientific journal, and he'd like a write-up on the Gelman site. And so I agreed that I would do that. And also Bob Bailey was invited to do a write-up on his information on the intrusion, water and
Vapor
vapor
intrusion.
into structures when dioxane contaminated water is in contact with basements. So I initially invited members of the board if they would like to participate, collaborate, and working on my document, which is just going to be, it's just going to be like a history and a roundup of things we've been talking about tonight, how we've been here and we've been there and here we are again. And I've got a draft, but I could really, if people are interested in working on the document, let me know. And I do have a working draft that's about 70% drafted. But I'll tell you one thing, I don't think I can write up, even in 1 or 2 paragraphs, which is probably all we need. It's only 8 pages long, this document. It's a short review, is the consent judgment. I just do not understand the court case and the consent judgment. So if anyone would help with that, I would be really grateful, because every time anyway, I just don't. But if anyone would be interested in helping in any way, that'd be fine. Supposedly, I was told that the due date was going to be in June, but I think it's been stalled. I don't think it's going to be a June deadline because we haven't heard back from the journal. And so I sent a couple of emails to Vasilis, and I'll let people know. But even if the theme journal falls apart, I'm going to submit the paper anyway because, you know, it's already in process.
So Bob, want to make a comment?
Bob?
Yes, well,
Dr. Bailey?
what my paper is about is basically talking about the fact that there really isn't dioxane vapor coming up through the soil that's the concern. It's the contaminated water down around West Park. So it turns out that this is pretty much a peculiar feature of 1,4-dioxane, and looked at a bunch of other solvents, and the vast majority of them simply don't follow water quite like dioxane does. Interesting. So my paper looks a lot like the poster that we did a year ago. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that people connected with CARD don't get excited like they did last year. And we have a disclaimer that this isn't CARD's position or the Washtenaw County or something, but rather, hey, this is what Rita and I and whoever else wants to put their name on the papers think about the situation. And I think it will get us some useful publicity and simply publicize 1,4-dioxane, which is a problem in a lot of places in the world, including Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah.
I'll add two things that this is cutting edge science, because there's an expert at U of M who has said that this is a very interesting but not published phenomena. And so getting it published, Dr. Bailey's information will be very valuable, and getting a publication will give it more credibility. As Rita says, if you want it to get noticed, get it published. So I think it's great. Thanks for all that work. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Bob had, he wrote up a paper, and I think that was distributed, but I think this is going to be one way to really get some discussion generated on it. And so I did put into the chat the suggested text for the acknowledgement section, and the text would read, and this is text that is modified from the text that the NIH recommends that NIH grantees use in an acknowledgement section on their manuscript, that the
National
content
Institutes
is
of Health,
solely the responsibility of the authors and does not represent the official views of the Coalition for the Action of Remediation of Dioxane, CARD, or any other organizations affiliated with CARD. So, I'm not looking to make a big issue out of this, but I know that there was some concern with the posters, and I just want to be very clear that we're not looking to do anything weird. I mean, this is just, we just want to write these papers up. So there it is. If somebody has a problem with it, I want to hear about it sooner rather than later. I don't want to hear it at the last minute, and I don't want a big blow up. Let's get to some level, and it would be nice to, even if somebody would say something now if they don't like that wording.
So Rita, this is Jenny, because we're all alluding to what happened last year. What happened was posters were published with CARD's name on it that CARD didn't review. These papers would have your name and Bob's name and the other authors, and the disclaimer is fine. It doesn't have CARD's name, so there's no problem there. Just want to make sure that per the CARD bylaws, everyone in CARD is updated on what's going on. So I appreciate you putting the disclaimer in this time. There shouldn't be any issues.
Thank you.
Okay, and that takes us, we have about 2 minutes left here, or 3, and there's an item we haven't addressed, which was 4C, Jenny, and the 2021 long-term drinking water well monitoring.
I want to also, I have a couple of what's new items.
Okay, great.
the meeting. So after Jenny.
Okay, we'll come right back to you. Jenny?
I don't have too much, just we collected 18 water samples in April. No new detections of dioxane. We had 3 detections, but all homes had previous detections, and we collected an additional 44 samples today. And sent those to the lab, and we're collecting another 50 some samples next week. So more coming on that in probably the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Dan, that leaves it with you.
Okay, just something I wanted to update people. I did it here. I'm going to send out an email too. I was informed by Gelman that the TW19 extraction well along Maple had a problem. It basically collapsed. They did a video of it down well, did a video, and so it collapsed and they took it offline. They increased pumping at an adjacent TW23 to make up for some of it. So I wanted to tell the car group tonight, like I normally do. I usually send out when I get informed that we were having the card meeting. So I waited till now, but I will keep you posted. They are basically going to replace that well, the TW19. I don't have a schedule. There are some issues with long lead items, the screens and the piping. They're having a little trouble getting that, and they're having a little trouble getting certified drillers to install, on HAZWOPER certified, because it's a waste site. Yes, Beth.
Dan, are you sure it's not the one on Wagner Road? They've been working on this one here right across from Rhea Street for 3 weeks every day.
Okay, can you identify which well it is? I'll take a look at it. I'm not sure what, I know they've been up, I have to see which well. I know they've been doing behind their property along Saginaw Forest. They've been doing work on the extraction wells, kind of redeveloping them and getting them more efficient because they have lost some efficiency.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understand which well you're at.
Well, I forget the number too. I think it's right on Wagner across from my neighborhood.
Roger's up.
I know. He knows all the numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
Not that one. He doesn't know that.
Not apparently not this one.
I could go out, take a picture and send it to you.
Well,
but they they have major machinery there, and in addition to their big tanks, they've been there for at least 2 weeks every day drilling. And
I don't have any. I haven't asked them about it, and I have to figure out what where you're talking about. So
Kathy, do you know?
So, but I will find out about it. But I did want to identify. They let me know that they have their TW19 went down. It basically collapsed, and they confirmed it with a TV camera. And so they are pumping more from TW23, which is a newer well along Maple. It replaced the TW16 a couple years ago, and then they are planning to reinstall to replace the TW19. I will keep you guys posted on what that schedule is.
Dan,
yeah,
Roger here. My ears are burning, so I got back on. Do they have any idea why it collapsed? I've heard of wells being abandoned because the screen gets clogged and thing. I don't recall any of Gelman's monitoring or purge wells collapsing. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Basically, I may have misspoke as far as collapsing. There was a large hole. There was, and the sediments, the gravel pack, and the sediments that it's pumping from went in and kind of pressed the screen in, that type of pressure. So it mainly started with a hole, and so I guess collapse may not have been the best description word. Basically, though, it filled up with the sand and gravels from the unit that it was pumping out of, and so it dropped way off in efficiency and the amount of water they could get off, and they cameraed it out and took a look at it with a camera. And
right, yeah. So have you or anybody in EGLE had any experience with this happening before anywhere else?
I mean, Roger, I can't speak. I know I have had monitoring wells do that same thing. Whether I haven't, this is a well, you know, with a stainless steel screen and that type of thing, I believe. I mean, you know, I've read about this happening. It's not
Okay.
uncommon. It relates to, you know,
It happens, but it's not that common. It's not expected.
I've had it happen, Roger. Not necessarily with an extraction well, not necessarily that it's exploded, but you get separation of the riser from the actual screen and it caves in.
Yep. It filled
It does
up with the sediments from around.
Yeah.
And that when they cambered it, they had a lot of corrosion, you know, and it's the geochemistry of the water, the groundwater in the area. It's not, you know, it is corrosive.
Very much.
Wells like that. And so I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware that that well has been turned off, and it, you know, they're doing more pumping at TW23 along Maple to try to, you know, to make up for as much as they can. And then they are in the process of scheduling that to be replaced. The other item I wanted to say tonight that we have a new district supervisor. I think she's still on that will become part of the Jackson district Gelman team. Her name is Andrea Munoz Hernandez. And she will be coming to the next quarterly meeting, which is next month. I gave her the link tonight, and you know, she has been the new Jackson district manager for 2 weeks. So you know, I'm just starting to brief her on the Gelman site, what we've been doing, what, you know, the card group. So she decided to attend tonight, and but I just wanted to make that introduction. She will be definitely at the, as Mitch and Jerry used to do, attend the quarterly meetings. If you remember, because we were in limbo with a district supervisor, but we didn't ask the last acting one to do that. Mary Miller kind of filled in with that, the next level of management above that, and Josh filled in with that. So,
right. Well, maybe it's time, maybe with Josh too, for me to do with them what I did with you when you first came on board.
That may be a good idea. We can, you know, I'll like I said, I'm just starting to brief her, you know, on the site. And,
and like I did with Kim Davis when he took over the cleanup back in 1995.
I'm going to give her a little bit of resume information. She has a PhD in hydrogeology. She worked for Water Resources Division. And I don't know her specific text. She worked with the water engineers for EGLE across the, you know, about water supply wells. So she is very qualified with the particular groundwater, if you want to say groundwater contamination aspect of the Gelman site. But she is the district supervisor. She will be, like Mitch and Jerry used to do, will be at the meetings and be part of our team now. And,
yeah. Well, she's on camera.
Okay, okay, there. I'm sorry. I knew she was.
I think she has a mic.
So thank you, Dan, for the introduction. So as he was mentioning, I just joined the Jackson district 2 weeks ago. But before of that, I was not working for Water Resources Division. I was working for the Drinking Water and Environmental Health. So I was actually like working as a geology specialist or hydrogeology. So I was providing support to all the district engineers all over the state. So I'm professionally trained as a hydrogeologist, and I have many years of experience either working for consulting or for academia. So this project is a big project, so that I'm basically getting familiar with this conversation. Being part of this conversation has been very helpful for me. So I have been taking notes and everything, and I know some of the concerns. So I think that will be obviously something that we will be talking with upper management for sure. I just want to be kind of like making like a quick comment, like when I was working in my previous position for drinking water. So it was pretty common for people that, you will be doing reviews and people will be in disagreement sometimes with you, especially, if they were not too excited about your comments or something. So they will be in some moments like actually providing like another like letter or document, and they stated everything that they are in disagreement, and they will be indicating the reasons why they were in disagreement. And then if they have additional data, they will be providing that. So that's actually like something that is pretty common and standard to be kind of like having that type of a conversation. So for sure, I mean, as you're actually getting your subgroup and having this conversation, what is the best way to proceed and move forward? So I mean, just wanted me to be sharing with you that information. So yes, and like I said, I mean, this project is big, so there's a lot of information, but I'm trying to speed up to get familiar very quickly. So
yeah, well, I really look forward, I'm sure the other card members do, of working with you and bringing you up to speed on this, because in my experience, when everybody has the best accurate information, the best things happen. And one thing I would suggest for you is to tilt your camera down just a few degrees. There, that's better. Yeah, you want to kind of be centered, maybe, rule of thirds, whatever.
see that the camera is, I have like my two monitors and like a camera, it just
Yeah,
doesn't want to stay there. So like
we're all
I'm
challenged by
trying,
Zoom
it's
these
kind of like
days.
see me my face and a little bit. So, but yeah, so
Yeah.
a little bit better. So there we go.
I haven't
So.
given her an EGLE RRD hat yet, so she would wear that once we get, for the.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good introduction. Thank you.
So I, like I said, she will be part of the Gelman team now. As my direct supervisor and the Jackson district has the Gelman site. Beth, I have one last question. I wanted to make sure, a lot of comments were made tonight about some concerns with EGLE, and that I want to bring that, we're going to bring that, as Andrea said, to the management. Are you going to post this, a recording of this? Was this, because I want to make sure, I'm going to point out that, hey, there was very much concern tonight, and I want to make sure the key people, I can only verbally bring in with my notes, of the concern. So are you going to post it like you normally do? Like Roger, is that?
Yeah, well, I'm recording it in the cloud, and where I think Vince and Mike are recording it locally.
Okay.
We'll have a good recording. It may take longer to post it this time because I'm not back in town for a couple of weeks. I don't have really good editing capability on my laptop, but if the cloud recording works fine, I'll probably post that at least as an interim.
Yep, please do. I want to make sure I present your concerns accurately. And
thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
And like I said, if you click on his report is in the agenda under.
And I'm going to pass that on. The agenda changed from the other day, there's several versions, so I didn't get the last I'll get the last version, and I've just checked it on myself that you have the link, so I will make sure the team, the management team is made aware of that thing, and then if you can post, as you normally do, for the recording, I will make sure that the people that need to see the recording and your concerns view it. I just want to make sure that I pass an accurate information on.
Right. By the way, Dan, all of the documents that we use Google Drive to store that, so that if we make changes, the original link will still take you to the latest version.
Right.
So if you download something and print it off, you might want to check just before you go to the meeting. Then, if you use that paper copy, to use the online copy instead. Make sure you have the latest.
Guy, and I did the paper copy, and I didn't check the last one, so the agenda was a little bit different. Okay, where are these links at? So
yeah, well, that's the beauty of we don't have to worry about revs that way. I know there's some people on the screen that like to use different revs, but we like to have the link be permanent.
Okay, so everybody noticed that the next meeting is June 1st, and it's at 10 o'clock because it's a quarterly meeting. And thank you, everybody, for your participation tonight. It was interesting, to say the least.
There is still a
Thanks, Mike.
couple of hands. Kathy Knoll and Linda Burrower. Do you want to ask something first too?
Yeah, I can be quick. I just wanted to be sure people knew that all of the pleadings, everything that was filed with the court is now posted on the City of Ann Arbor website. So people can find everything and read it.
I'm also going to post it in the legal document tab under the EGLE webpage, in the near future. So.
Kathy Dan Bicknell, is it possible to get a video of the court proceedings?
Don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a video provided or if it's just going to be a written transcript. I do not know.
During the hearing, the clerk mentioned that you can obtain the video in the normal way, and I don't know what the normal way is. And so if you call the clerk's office and ask how to obtain that video, how much it costs, and how long it would take to get that video, they will provide the video of the Zoom call.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Last remarks?
Well, is that
Jack, you're going to help, aren't you? You're going to help Rita with the understanding of the CJ and the court case, right? Because you've been following it as well as anybody. I'm volunteering Jack Eaton to help with the presentation of the court case in there in Rita and Bob's.
He's got nothing else to do now,
I
right?
know, he's retired. I mean, I'll help you too.
It's only a paragraph or two. Seriously, it's
This is
8
in the
pages of a
screen
page.
that will testify that I sleep in late, so I have a full day.
All right. I'm going back to work, I'm sorry to say, so thank you.
So, before we adjourn, I want to point out that a good ally of ours who is a dependable vote on council has joined us this evening, Elizabeth Nelson. She's been really good on council. She doesn't always make it to these meetings, but I wanted to call attention to her attendance tonight because
Thank you, Elizabeth.
it's important.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I enjoyed tonight.
Thanks for coming. So
Yeah,
Beth, I have the map of the wells. Do you want me to share that screen and we could look at the wells?
Sure. Roger, what's the one right across from Rhea Street on Wagner?
You know, on my laptop, I didn't want to bog it down with bringing up Google Earth and showing the normal display. So I don't have that right here right now. So
But Vince, it's that one right across from Rhea Street. And
well, Vince has a map. We can zoom in on that, right,
Can you
Vince?
see the map?
like, I mean, they're
Yeah.
major, like they have trucks making lots of noise. And so it's not just what they normally do. Like they normally are over there for a few hours when they're changing screens or doing whatever, and the tanks of water.
Yeah, well, this is the county map. It doesn't have the small streets on it, but I'm guessing it's TW 18.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me just step in at the moment and say, this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks,
If you
Mike.
all want to keep talking, by all means do, but I'm going to push the button to stop recording.
But wait. You can stop your own recording, but I will end the.
Yeah, I'm not stopping the cloud recording. Keep that
There was a reference made to the link to the city site. Somebody who has that link could go ahead and put it in the chat. Just
Beth, I would check on,
copy the link.
that's the one I thought it was, TW18 or one of the extraction wells in that, along Wagner. I will see, I think is what is happening is they are redeveloping the extraction wells. And I will check on that and report back at the next card meeting.
Okay.
But, I will get that information for you.
Well, you can even share if it's something important. You can even share it before that with card admin.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for covering while I'm away.
I hope you have a great visit there, Roger, and have a
So
safe
far,
trip
so
home.
good.
Have
Yeah.
a safe trip home.
Thanks for cheering it, Mike.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
Thank you, Mike.
I think this may be a future format from going forward.
Uh-oh.
All right, I'm leaving now before it gets worse.
Somebody still has their hand up.
Oh, Linda.
No, that was from before. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Good night, all.
Night.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening
Thanks,
to me
Roger.
vent and
Good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.